He became a rock legend to everyone around the world. But he was only known because of one band and one album. The year was 1989. The album was Eat the Heat, and the band was Accept. I had to find out his whole story. So, I am joined now by the former frontman of Accept, David Reece. David, this is a great honor to actually be talking to you.
Well, thank you.
Your journey in the entire music from what I could find, obviously not the not the very early years, because it doesn't go back that far. But yeah, so your journey has been, I would describe it as phenomenal. And
very kind of you.
I would love to hear as much as you as much as you want to divulge.
Yeah.
So how on earth did the entire journey begin?
When did it begin?
The whole journey, from when you actually thought, "Oh, I'm going to be musical," or...
Well, I come originally from Oklahoma, and my grandmother's brothers were all players, but they were home players. They were farmers, and basically their way of turning off the day was to get together and jam every night. And my fondest memories are being put in their lap, and farmers have a smell about them. And those old Martin guitars, I can still remember that smell. And the men would unwind by just picking guitars and banjos and playing fiddle. And I was just fascinated with the sound of the instrument and the joy, My personal journey began at about the 5th grade, which would place me probably 9 years old, somewhere around there. I had joined a choir in my school, and my music choir teacher's name was Mrs. Harnick. God rest her soul. And those days I could sing soprano or mezzo, until the voice changes, or let's just say, honestly, super high tenor. But I loved it, a choral arrangement of people. But in those days, we were talking, 1969, 70 maybe. It was not considered a guy's sport, so to say. So a lot of the boys in school would beat the living shit out of me for being in the choir. They called it sissy. And after about, a few months of that, being chased down the street and beaten up by the local bullies, I decided I'm not doing this. This is life-threatening. I totally loved it. But before that happened, the decision was made. I remember my first recital was I sang Yesterday with her playing acoustic guitar, classical guitar. And there was about 250 people in the school, not that big of a school. And the feeling was just hard to explain, the response. It was wonderful. But during that time, like I said, they picked on you. You're a sissy, or, boys don't sing in choir kind of thing. And I disappeared. And she came to my house. I saw her pull in the driveway, and I ran and hid in the basement. And I could hear her talking to my mother, telling her, "Your son has a gift. He has to use it." And she said, "Well, they're beating the living crap out of him. He's not coming back." And she said, "Please talk to him." And sadly, I didn't go back. Who wants to get beat up, right? Excuse me. So from there, I left home at a very young age due to family problems, about 15 years old, and I moved into an apartment where kind of the leader of the gang was a guitar player. And I was working a factory 2 shifts a day, a candle factory. It was horrible work. And in those days, it paid about $2 an hour. And you thought you were making money, but do the math, that's $16 a day. It's not, you know. But I would come home and this guy would be lounged out on the couch with a Stratocaster and a bunch of chicks, you know, and playing clubs. And I hated his guts because he didn't have to do anything. And I was killing myself to live, basically. And one day, it was a weekend probably, I was in the shower. And in those days, we had the AM radios with the battery in the soap dish. And I was singing a Zeppelin song while I was showering. And the shower curtain opened up and he said, "Dude, you can sing. Want to join my band?" And I'm like, "Okay." So we had 4 songs. And we played the same 4 songs in our first gig, which was an outdoor barn party, over and over and over for the whole night. And when they had lights, like yard lights with a little switch, they would go red, blue, yellow, blue, red, blue, yellow, blue, right? But it was great. I was about 17, I think, 16. And then from there, I progressed into the club scene. Um, it started to kind of get a name for myself with local bands. And I ended up in a group called Dare Force, which were like the big guys in town, in Minneapolis. I had moved to Minnesota, by the way, from Oklahoma. My father was a chemist, and he had worked for a big petrol company, and they all got laid off, so he went hunting work. We ended up in Minnesota, a bunch of rednecks from the South going to the Arctic North. But that's where my journey began. I started playing with local clubs, bands, and in those days, you played at least 4 sets of show, 7 days a week. So I probably played 350, 360 shows a year from 17 to 21 with a break here and there, and then go back and do it again. And at the time, I loved it in the beginning. It was such a great experience, you know, playing my favorite rock songs, all covers, of course, and you know, drawing big crowds. And we were kind of the band that they would call to open for the headliners if they didn't have one. So we'd go play and open for bands like Cheap Trick and that ilk of that area, because they're all Midwestern bands, you know. Yeah. And one day I said, you know, guys, we're really good. We've written some songs. We should go to Hollywood, you know, because in the early 80s, everybody was getting big record deals. And they were like, no, because they were affiliated with some of Prince's players, Des Dickerson and some guys like that, because Prince came out of Minnesota. And they believed that would come to us, but it never did. So I said, let's just pack up and go. And, you know, being the big fish in a small pond kind of mentality, they said, we're going to stay here. So I split. And everybody in LA is a waiter or, you know, something in the industry, music, movies. And I was homeless. I was living out of cars and, you know, just trying to get known, and played in a few bands in LA. Nothing really happened. Went back, rejoined the band, played for a couple of years, and then the band split up. And I did my own thing for a while. And I'd gone back to California, try number 2, and met this woman named Lucy Forbes. And she had a little thing called Rock Congress, and her vision was a rock musician placement agency. And I was homeless. She lived down in Santa Monica. I was sleeping on her living room floor next to a propane fake fireplace, because, you know, down on the beach, it's cold as hell at night down there in the Pacific Ocean. And that was my room, you know, and she would try to I was doing demos with Mitch Perry and kind of known guys, you know, trying to put bands together. That went on for a while and nothing transpired. So I just told her one day, I'm out of here. I'm going. My parents had moved to Colorado. I said, I'm just going to retire. I don't want to do this. And basically just rounded up, you know, in the backpack of what I owned and jumped on a Greyhound and took off. Well, unbeknownst to me, Dieter Dirks, the producer of the Scorpions, was having an affair with her. And he had flown into LA a few days after I had left. and told her that except we're working with a new singer, an Englishman by the name of Robert Armitage, and it wasn't really working out. Do you know anybody? She goes, yeah, this guy, and handed him a 5-song demo I had done. And he played it and said, that's the guy.
Wow.
Where is he? She goes, I don't know. He just left. He went to Colorado like a couple days ago. She goes, we got to find him. So I had gone and set up camp in Colorado, gone back to the construction world, living in the mountains. And one snowy night, the phone rang, and it was Wolf Hoffman from Accept. And of course, I didn't believe it was him. You know, I played Restless and Wild. I played a couple of their songs in, you know, metal bands I was in. I knew who they were, but I wasn't, honestly, a fan, so to speak. I always loved Udo, but he says to me, would you be interested in auditioning for the band? And I'm like, yeah. There's a bear shit in the woods. I mean,
Wow.
And a couple of days later, I'm on a plane to Dusseldorf, and that opens the door into the journey of the big league, I suppose. Total culture shock going to Germany. Never been anywhere but Canada, and being in club bands, you get kind of a routine, and you get a bit lackadaisical with, you know, you learn a few new songs every month to freshen the set. But going into something of that league, I had no clue, you know, hey, I'm a great singer, I got a great range. I mean, we're talking all day pre-production, different, you know, European culture, getting rid of the guy that basically is the band and making such a drastic change. It was crazy. I mean, the first day I got there, you know, with jet lag, you can't sleep. The next morning, I finally fell asleep about 7. Peter woke me up and said, let's go. And I thought, where are we going? And he said, to the studio. And I thought, oh, cool, I get to meet the Scorpions. That's how naive I was, you know, because they were finishing Savage Amusement, their final album with Dieter Dirks, and we were going to be the next thing he planned to make big. They were already pretty big, except at that time, but not across the pond. That their whole goal was to get an American or an English-speaking person to open the U.S. market, because they would hit a certain limit and never really break it. So the labels were saying, either you get a real singer that can cross over into that genre, or we're going to kind of call it a day with Accept. So they picked me. And the final audition was a live gig in Cologne, which was terrifying because they announced it Germany's biggest metal band. They didn't put the name on the marquee. I get there and it's sold out. Pretty much resolved to thinking I'm not going to get the gig. After 6 months, I'm going to have a great time and I'll probably be flown home tomorrow. Well, the next morning, welcome to Accept. So here I am. And that was 1987, I think. 87, 88, 87, 88, somewhere in there. And wonderful experience and a terrible experience at the same time. I mean, I'm speaking to you and other journalists and podcasts because of that. The album bombed. There was no middle. I mean, they either hated me or they loved me. There was no, because see, the Europeans, especially in Europe, when they latch onto a band, it's a lifelong commitment, and Udo was part of them. So it was like a betrayal to the Accept fans, and it was a pretty drastic change, you know, musically. You know, Ecstasy and D-Train, those are pretty heavy tracks, and you know, when you come out with a single like Generation Class, you know, we should have changed the name of the band, but you had the brand, so you really can't do that. So
it was ironically the album, you said it completely bombed, but I actually prefer that album to the rest of them.
It's funny that you say that because, you know, touring over these years, I've had every show, I can honestly say, somebody come to me with that record and say, I'm really sorry, I really didn't like this, but it's the best album that I've got. I love your voice. I love what you did on this. And it's 30 some odd years ago. I hear it all the time. And it's funny because I'm kind of a late bloomer. Like my records get really popular decades later. So yeah, I'm really good friends with Udo Dirkschneider. He and I've toured opening for him on the Steel Factory tour. Him and I have always been pretty tight. Uh, he was always very respectable with me because he was doing Mean Machine at the time that I was doing Eat the Heat. We're in the same studio together, so it was a little weird, I'm the guy taking your job, but he just said, "Hey, got to get ready for this, get ready for that. If you need any advice, da 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 da." Always great to me.
And I've been also listening. I just got around to listening to your own solo album. I'm like, your voice is awesome.
Oh, the new one, Baptized.
Yeah.
Yeah, that came out last March 1st. Thank you. We were number one in Germany for over a month with that record. And then the second single, God forgive me, I forgot. We've Lost the Fight came in about number 7, lasted for a few weeks. That's a first for me. Very grateful for that. The record did really well. We played a bunch of gigs last year. Scandinavia, Germany, France, God, you name it, we were everywhere. But yeah, the band is great, and I owe a lot of that to the kids that I play with. And I say kids because I'm the old guy. But we all live here in the same village, like I told you the other day.
Yeah.
On our warm up show, we live 5 minutes from each other, so it's fabulous.
There's no such thing as you've got experienced or elder. You can't. I will not allow you to use the word old.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say old, but let's say seasoned. I've been around the block more than once. I've been around, so I mean,
because you're still pulling the high ranges. I'm like, I wish my voice would stay like that when I'm in the 60s.
Well,
you're still pulling the high ranges, which is extraordinary.
Thank you. The attribute to that is vocal rehearsal every day, and I don't drink. I don't do drugs. I did. I've been sober 6, almost 7 years now. I knew if I'd have continued down that road, I wouldn't be singing at the level I am now because it was just chaos. And thank you. I rehearse every day. I write every day, or I try to. There's an idea. Middle of the night, I get up and I come down here. Everybody's asleep. I just start working, and if you don't work your muscles, they don't work.
Yes.
And many guys, I'm lucky, I guess, can keep it if they don't abuse it. They don't smoke. They don't drink. A lot of us get older, or my age, and you start to lose a few octaves, which I have. I've lost 1 or 2, and you just have to learn how to kind of.
I wouldn't notice.
Well, yeah, thanks, but I maneuver it because of my training that I've had and the focus. Well, I need to strengthen this. It's not like it was 10 years ago, so I'll practice on that for a couple of weeks. I'll get it to where I want, and then. If you have a bad day, if you're not feeling well, 99% of this job is your head. If you tell yourself you can't reach that or do that, you're not going to do it. And I think that's life. It's all attitude, really. And if you sing on key, that helps a little bit.
Yes, if you can hold a tune, that really does help.
Well, we really, I got to say it. It's like AI. I don't try to write lyrics with using AI for help. If I'm stuck, I just put it down, and I don't want to have a computer fix what I am. Because I think a lot of this quantized music that we're listening to now, it's bloody awful, and it sounds the same. The drums, the vocals are all perfect. I listen to like Bad Company or Tom Petty or some of those bands from the 70s and 80s. Yeah, there's some pitching issue. Yeah, and drum tempo.
I do not like the computer age music. I'm like,
no, but I mean, what we're forced to listen to music on these little things that we're talking on right now. how much of the song are you really getting with earbuds and a phone? And I prefer dropping a needle on a crackling vinyl and listening to the mistakes that the bands, because they had limited budgets. They would go in and track 15 songs in a day. Tempos are a little off, a little vocal flatness here, a little guitars out of tune, but the songs were what it was all about. It's all about the song.
It is. It's all about the song. It's all
and
about
the performance.
I listen to the message first and the beat second. That's all I do.
Yeah,
I'm like, what? You try, or what are they trying? What is their message in this? There is a message, otherwise they wouldn't write it.
Yeah, I mean, you can stream music, and for $12.99 a month, you can listen to 50 artists. I mean, really, how much of the song are they really listening to? It's a tragedy. It's like McDonald's drive-thru.
I have my CD collection. I'm a bit old for vinyl. Sorry, I'm a bit young for vinyl. But my CD collection, I've still got my CD collection. Still got a CD player. Still listen to all of them. Yes, I do have the streaming services, but I don't. Yeah, sometimes I want to listen to CDs.
That's great. I mean, I know a guy that's literally got a basement full, and he buys every one of my records, and he's very supportive of all the artists. I mean, you don't hear that often. My wife has a collection of vinyl that's ridiculous. I mean, the whole basement, I mean, they're just wrapped in heavy plastic. She has, how many albums do you have, honey? Hundreds? Hundreds. Yeah. So stuff that I used to buy that I've lost somewhere in one of my multiple moves in my gypsy lifestyle. But yeah, I mean, it's about the song,
It is about the song. It's about the lyrics as well, and you can't really hear that on a computer. You can try, but
I'm opposed to the quantized, grid drums and all that. You put the human element to it, then you add all these computerized triggers, and
there's so many. There is such a thing as overdoing it.
Yeah, you sterilize the humanity, and I mean, it's a lot more work to record real drums, but we try to stay as close to that as possible.
I prefer the real drums as well. I prefer the certain stuff you can do more with real drums than you can do than any electric one will do.
It all comes down to economics, though. That's why all this has happened to us. I mean, how many labels are still around, and budgets are not like they were in the
Not many after Universal has steamrolled the indie industry as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's always one big dog in the yard, isn't there?
Yeah.
So I mean, it's the good news is it seems like the independents are starting to make a comeback, because a lot of the bands are going to them because they want to keep their music alive, and that's really all that's out there, because the majors are dropping like flies. So.
And I noticed. I mean, Wikipedia is woefully inaccurate on most of their factual things, but I don't know how many of these. After except I'm looking at your Wikipedia page, I don't know how many of these are actually because any of them are actually accurate, because some interview websites that I've looked at as well don't even list half of them. So you've got, so after accept it, say you were with Alex De Rosso, for
I did a record with him. I met him in LA. It was weird. I was at the Troubadour, and he tapped me on the shoulder and asked me to sing a few tracks on one of his records. And I know later he went to Dokken. I live in the same country as him. I haven't seen him in 30 years, but I met him on a fluke. It was just, they were looking for connections like I did when I went to LA, and I happened to be standing in the crowd and they recognized me and asked me to go in. He's with his management team, and he's a brilliant guitar player.
And you also mentioned Bangalore Choir, which is that your creation or?
Exactly. After Sepp cut me loose, I went to LA with Momentum #3, the third time, and formed a group. I went right to GIT, started meeting all these guys again, and met John Kirk. Had a few other guys involved, and you kind of go through, weed out what works and what doesn't, and had the band put together in a couple of months. Started recording immediately. We had a garage that was connected to a factory that we were allowed to use. We had an 8-track, and we played and wrote every night. And everybody knew me then because of Accept, so it made it a lot easier. My manager that we picked up was Stevie Nicks' personal assistant manager, and he brought me to Howard Kaufman, who was her main manager, who managed the Eagles, Bad English, Heart, Whitesnake. So I stepped off that boat into the next boat. And in LA, you don't play every weekend. You play like once a month.
Yeah.
And we quickly developed a huge following. And after 9 shows in about a year, we had an offer from every label in California.
Jesus.
I remember the night that Kevin Moran was the A&R guy for Giant Warner Brothers at the time, and I had gone to see Herman Rarebell from the Scorpions. Called me and said, "Hey, the Scorps are in town. We're going to go see Michael Schenker play tonight. You want to meet at the Palace?" And I said, "Yeah." So I tell the band, "Hey, the Scorps just called." And they're like, "You know the Scorpions?" "Of course I do." So we go backstage. We get to see the band play. They're like starstruck. But going in, Kevin Moran was standing at the ticket booth, and he said, "Hey, I hear you guys are about ready to cut loose and sign." And I said, "Yeah, why aren't you on the list, Kevin? I really want to be with Warner Brothers." And he said, "Be in my office tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock." And we cut a major deal the next day.
Wow.
So, yeah, it was crazy. It was like, boom. I mean,
and you're now doing your solo stuff as more.
Yeah. I'm really getting tired of being a band guy, because frankly, being in a band I'm already married and I don't need any more wives in my life. I mean, you can say everything's a partnership. It doesn't matter. Democracy does not rule the day in a rock and roll band.
Yeah,
I will say the guys I work with, I mean, they're really cool, but I'm kind of the leader. I don't want to be a boss, but I can kind of say, "No, we're not going to do that," or "We're going to do this." And the good thing about these young guys, though, a lot of times they'll look at me and go, that sounds ridiculous. What are you talking about? And I'll go, "What do you mean?" And they go, "That's a dumb idea." So the cool thing is they'll stand up to me and say, "Nah, maybe we should try this way." So that does work. But when you have like name guys playing in a band together, there's always, it starts off great, and then 2 months down the road, you start seeing the little cracks. And it's sad, but that's how it works. And this way I'm free. I don't have to call and ask the partner, "What do you think of this? Should I?" Or, "No, I'm not doing that. I refuse. I want my own room, 5-star hotel. I've got to have this. I've got to have that." Hey, man, it's not 1985 anymore. We're lucky to be able to get a rental van. I mean, times have changed. So I just don't want to deal with the drama.
Where does Iron Allies fit into your?
Well, that's a weird bird because Herman's really focused on Victory right now, and that everybody's kind of doing their own thing. He's a great guitar player. I think the album did really well. We played big festivals in 2024. The future of the band, I have no clue. I really haven't talked to him. I literally just finished a new solo album, which I'll listen to this coming Sunday, today being Friday, with the band here at the house. We're going to listen and see if we're there yet. I don't think we are. I have 2 or 3 more songs that I've done that I want to throw at them and see maybe we should change this song for this song. But that's my focus. And I just signed with new management, Valentin Labani, in France. It's weird. I'd never played France in all my career. And that was the first time, was last November. Fantastic audiences. I mean, the people were great, really full rooms. Played a bunch of gigs there. And he's my personal guy because I don't want to do this anymore. You know, the email guy, the manage the band, book the flights. I'm tired of that. And it's just so time consuming, you know, bookings. I just don't want to do it. I mean, I know everybody, but it's really not my job. I'd rather be focused on making music. And
yes, focus on what you enjoy and not what you don't. I mean,
yeah, and that, I mean, I have a pretty good feeling about him. He's done some great things so far. We're supposed to speak. Sadly, his wife's having surgery today, so I'll speak to him Sunday night. We're planning a bunch of gigs. I think we go back to Scandinavia in April. And I have a gig on the 31st, I think, of January. It's called Rock Party of the Year in Holland.
okay.
I'll be playing. Les Binks from Priest will be on drums. And a bunch of well-known singers will be there. It's sold out, from what I'm told. My show that day, there's 2 shows, Friday and Saturday. I'm really looking forward to that. I get to sing Princess of the Dawn from Accept. I'm going to do Out in the Fields, Gary Moore. Look at Yourself, Uriah Heep. Ain't No Love in the Heart of the City. And one more. My mind just went blank. But I've been rehearsing for that. I'm really excited about that because Holland has always been good for me as well. So, but the plan is to finish this record. I'm not sure if I'm gonna self-release it or if I'm gonna try to go to a label because I don't really see what labels cannot really do for a band right now. You know.
No, I think I would do self-release purely because you will then have control over 100% of your royalties.
Mm-hmm. One benefit of labels is like El Puerto, which I've been on, done many records with. They do a fabulous job with media.
Yes.
And of course, I know all those people, but they'll schedule a media blitz 5 weeks prior to release, and I'll be on podcasts all day or email interviews. So that's a nice thing that I don't have to do. They do a great job with that. But like you said, the budgets for making records is nothing like it used to be. And home computers and home studios, you can do a lot. I mean, I don't produce myself because I'm my own worst critic. And if I think something's great, that doesn't mean it is. So I need to be, I need to be behind the glass with like Ricardo, our bassist, going, no, you can sing that better. I'm like, what? Because if I have a studio in my spare bedroom, I'll walk by it and go, I'll sing it later. And then when I go in there and sing it, I think, oh, this is great. And then I play it for the guys and like, nah, it's not so great. So I need to be produced. You know, even though you said earlier you maintained your range and stuff, it doesn't mean I can produce because I can't. And I can't mix with this shit. I'm terrible. Number one, because I'm nearly deaf in my left ear. So when you listen to my mixes, it's like all high end. Just turn up the high. I can't hear it. The Marshalls and the cymbals have destroyed my hearing.
So are you producing a new record yourself as a solo?
Well, Ricardo is my bassist, Di Morosi. He's got a studio here in town.
Right.
We have 14 recorded. I think 14. Yeah. But I listened back to the roughs the other night, and I'm like, sometimes when you listen to an album, I don't know if it's because Baptized did so well, if I'm being anxious. I want everybody's opinion, but I've written 2 or 3 new ones that I really like, and I'm just going to throw it at the band and say, hey, you want to record these? And then do the playback and go, let's pick the best 11 of those. And then I really want to do an acoustic, light drum. Yeah, I want to do something up close and personal. So I've been writing for that as well. I don't want to do like soupy love songs and stuff. I maybe would do like classics or my own stuff. But I've always kind of thought, you know what, it's time to do that. Just sit in front of a microphone, strum a guitar, drums low key in the back, a little bit of piano, play some blues harp, nice harmonies, but nothing like that.
Not even drums in the background. You won't need. You may not even need that, because I think Extreme actually proved that point with Nuno Betancourt's song.
The songs will tell me where to go. Some may be drums, some may not. Maybe some horns. I don't know. I have been blessed being surrounded by brilliant guitar players in my life. Niccolo Savinelli, who's in my band, his brother Nelo is the drummer. I've had a list of guitar players that I played with. Andy Susamil. God, I could list Kurt Mitchell from Bangalore. Those guys, just phenoms. I've been blessed. And, when you put a bunch of great guys like that together, maybe I could just do a collective of writing with all those guys, because they know my voice.
Yeah.
They know what I sing best at. They know what's right for my voice. And
do an album like what? One of Slash's albums is literally every single other song is a different person's appears on it.
Are you saying every song would be a different artist?
Every song a different. So one of Slash's songs, you've got Ian Astbury, you've got Miles Kennedy, then you've got Fergie.
Yeah, I mean that's crossed my little small brain a few times. Actually, I did a record during COVID with we called it the Highway Sentinels, and I'm sure you're familiar with Steve Rosen. He wrote Tone Chaser. He's actually a songwriter, and he wrote for Guitar Magazine for years, and he made a deal with all those big guitar players. One day I'm going to do a record, and I want you to play on it. So they all said, okay, Steve, when you're ready. So out of the blue, I get a phone call from Steve and my good friend Giles Lavery, who's the singer of Warlord and Alcatraz. And they say, we're going to do this. Jimmy Waldo on keyboards from Alcatraz, Steve on guitar, but spotlight guitar players on each song: Joe Satriani, Zach Wilde, Paul Gilbert, Bumblefoot. All these guys are on the record. The record didn't do shit. We thought this is going to be, they were good songs, but we thought with the list of great players, people would at least take interest. Just kind of came and went. But it was an experience, because, listening to Bumblefoot play against my voice, I went, wow. And then I knew Paul Gilbert because I met him when I was like 18, 19, when I was in Hollywood the first time. And I'm on a record with Paul now. So, and Satriani. I mean, he's a beast,
Joe's something else, yeah.
Yeah, he's an extraordinary musician, and I think Steve Vai might be on it as well. I'm not sure, but there's a bunch of those guys. But Rosen pulled in all the artillery, called in the favors for that one. But if anybody's out there listening, and they're curious, it's called Highway Sentinels, and there's some good songs on it, and really good guitar playing.
So it's kind of Highway Sentinels is kind of like the supergroup Metal Allegiance, which is Mike Portnoy and
maybe. I'm not saying that I spoke to all those guitar players. I wrote the songs with Jimmy and Steve, and then they would send them to those guitar players, and they'd go in their little studios and do their little whittly, and then send it back and go, what do you think? They'd send like 3 or 4 takes of each solo and fills, and we'd all go, yeah, that's a good one. Keep that one. But it's an honor to be part of that upper echelon of, musicians, I suppose.
So I always like to ask towards the end. We always if you could speak to your younger self, what advice would you give them? Now
Say no. Say no.
Say no.
Because don't be afraid. Because I signed a lot of stupid contracts because I was afraid to rock the boat. And had I stood up, and because in your gut you think this isn't right, but I got to play this game. No, you don't. If you believe in what you're doing, stand up for it. I mean, you'll have to compromise somewhere, but in general, if it's a bad deal, just say no. I'm not going to do it. I regret that the most because I made some really poor decisions. It doesn't mean anything that you're at Stevie Nicks' house recording in her butler's chambers doing demos. That means nothing in the big scheme of life. Yeah, it's cool to sit by the pool and talk to Stevie and hear war stories about Fleetwood Mac and all that stuff, because she grew up with the Hendrix era people and Joe Walsh and all that. You can talk for hours, but it doesn't mean anything. You think, oh, I made it. No, you haven't. And I've signed contracts, that I kind of just perused through quickly and didn't really look at what I was putting my John Henry on, that I should have really analyzed. Get a lawyer.
Oh, you didn't have a lawyer?
No, because I was more interested in being a knucklehead and playing the rock star lifestyle that these are my friends. They're not your friends. It's a business. Get a lawyer. I've got contracts on everything with lawyers now, and yeah, they cost money, but it's your life. But just don't be afraid to say. My biggest advice to an artist coming up: don't be afraid to say no. I mean, but you have to compromise everything in life. Business. Every business you're in. I mean, I was in the construction business for years. I ranched big ranch outfits in Montana. I mean, we did a lot of stupid shit. I got hurt real bad physically once because I did stupid shit. But I should have said, no, I'm not going to do that. And I got hurt. So it goes that way, with everything. But especially the music business. Now I think the artist has a lot more room to say, no, I'm going to do it this way. We don't have the big corporate monsters, behind the machine dictating our every song and sending in outside writers. And, in those days you had to play that game. I mean, on Bangalore Choir, if you look at it, I was working with Steve Plunkett from Autograph, John Bon Jovi and Aldo Nova are part of that record. And I'm thinking, well, it can't hurt to have Aldo Nova and John Bon Jovi on a song, right? Well, that's doesn't mean shit if the song doesn't sell. Loaded Gun, the video. At the time, I didn't know, but the male actor in the video is Jared Leto, the famous actor, and the singer of 30 Seconds to Mars. They're picking actors for a video, and this good-looking kid walks in, and you go, that guy. Well, 10 years later, you go, oh my God, that's Jared Leto. And he's in my video. But what did it do for Bangalore Choir? Nothing. So just say no. If it doesn't feel right and you're laying in bed and your brain is racing and you're going, oh my God, I got to talk the band into this. They need to hear what I have to say. Usually that's a good sign that it's a bad idea. Now, on the other side of it, the artist advice that I would give is there's a lot bad going on out there right now. And if you're offered gigs, try to get paid, because what's happening is a lot of bands are willing to play for free, pay for everything, and they're hurting the working musicians that are real about their career. Demand a fee. Get something, because what you're doing is you're hurting yourself and the other bands by accepting the door deals. You know, oh, COVID really hurt us. Well, it hurt me too. Oh, you said you would bring 500 people. There's only 200 here. Well, you pull into a village in Europe or some country, and you send them 50 posters to have put up to promote the show and all the social media. And then while you're waiting to get paid, you see behind the desk, there's your 50 posters laying on the floor. And they say, well, I don't have the 10 euros per hour to pay the guy to put them up. And you're blaming me that nobody's here. And the people that are there are going, I didn't even know you were playing tonight. I just found out on Facebook or Instagram. So self-promote, write good songs, and say no.
Self-promote, write your own songs, yeah, say no. And that is very good advice. And yeah,
it's frightening.
I'm going to take that out as well, because sometimes I just sit down to write, and then I'm like, okay, I can't do anything. And that's a big problem.
Yeah, I mean, it's frightening. You don't want to, you kick and claw to get yourself in the doorway, and then you walk into a negotiation, and there's all the drinks and all the glitz and glamour of a record company, and, you know, hey, I got a record coming out in the future. You know, you don't want to rock the boat, but the guys that really survived that are the guys like Tom Petty, Axl Rose. They literally, Axl, I was told, jumped down on the floor and was kicking and screaming like a 2-year-old, had a temper tantrum. What is it going to take, Axl? How much? And then he got what he wanted. But I mean, at the time you think this guy's an asshole. But now I look back and go, I respect that. You know, it's like no, you're not going to take that from me. I mean, the reason I'm here is because you smell money. You know, so use that leverage, and it's scary, but just say, you know, I'm not feeling comfortable about that. And you know what's funny about that is the first time I said no to one of those things, they looked at me directly and said, well, how much would it take? And I thought to myself, you dumb fuck. It's that easy? They were willing to, they were just playing the game, and I was letting them beat me. But when I said, no, I'm not cool with that, they came right back and said, okay, how much? Or what will make you happy? And we met better off than the first offer. I compromised a bit, but I got more out of it.
Wow. What was the how? I mean, you moved out of the US, you moved to Italy. How did you effectively escape the clutches of Hollywood?
I just got sick of it. Grunge came in when Bangalore was released. The same week I released On Target, Nirvana released Nevermind. The same Tuesday is record release day. Used to be. We got added to 140 plus record radio stations, and so did they. We shipped 200,000 copies. They shipped 600,000, which technically certified them platinum the first week. We barely eked out 375,000 copies. The second week, they were already at 2 million. The third week, I think they had hit 6 million. My record was out for a month, and I was dropped from the label. I mean, that's how Hollywood works. If they're not smelling money, and I don't care how many radio stations and MTV's playing your stuff, if the kids are skipping through it and waiting for Smells Like Teen Spirit, there was a major move in the music industry for about 3 or 4 years. It's kind of like when the Beatles came over, and Elvis used to be the king, then he went to Las Vegas and was doing residencies. And the Beatles were the new thing. But I just personally just got sick of it. I decided I was going to get married. I moved to Tennessee, went back to farming, and bought a little piece of land. I was freaking miserable, working 7 days a week, running a construction company at the same time. My wife divorced me a year later because she was a LA girl, couldn't stand the countryside. I disappeared for about 9 years. I didn't even know what a computer was. I mean, I was working on a ranch in Montana, and my friend, I was raising hunting dogs. That's my passion. I raise pointing dogs, and I love to hunt and fish and stuff. So I met this guy from Canada. He'd come down to Montana and wanted a puppy, and he said, "I'll trade you your computer that you have in the house. Why don't you use it?" I said, "I don't even know how to turn it on." One of those old ones with the big television screen and the keypad, you know.
Yep.
He said, "Well, I'm an IT guy. I can set you up. I'll trade you that for a puppy." I said, okay. So I got hooked up to MySpace, and as soon as I set up a page, and in those days it was dial-up, so it would take about 5 minutes for the screen to open up. Yeah, especially I lived in such a remote area, we didn't really have good signal. So I had 3 band offers that first day. "Where have you been? We thought you were dead." It was 9 years. But every day I missed singing. But I turned into like a new person. I just said music business wasn't for me. I was in Accept. I did Bangalore. It didn't happen. I got to get a real job. But when it's in your DNA, you really can't totally walk away from it. So 2005, I jumped on a plane and went to Sweedon. You know, I had to call my boss and say, "Hey, I used to be a rock and roll star." "What?" So his wife goes on Wikipedia and finds out my history. He said, "Why didn't you tell us?" I'm like, I left that behind. And then I go to Sweden and I make a record for Gypse Rose. And I left all my responsibilities in Montana, which was a heavy load for my boss and the people that I worked with. We're talking 200 cows and 50 dogs. I mean, it's a lot of work. I come back like a month later, and my voice hadn't quite gotten back to where it was because I hadn't sang in so long. So the producer calls me back and says, "Hey, the end of the record, the last 2 songs, your voice is starting to shine. I need you to come back and re-sing the album." "Oh, hey, boss, I got to go back to Sweden." He's like, "Man, I need you." I went back to Sweden again. And, you know, all the promises of touring and all that stuff. I didn't know anything about Napster or illegal downloading and how bad the business was starting to taper off and shows were getting harder.
Yep.
So coming back to the music business, it almost reminiscent of the grunge era in a lot of ways, but I've stuck it out for some. I mean, I was going to retire in 2015. I had decided if nothing happens, I'm out. And then Hans Ziller from Bonfire, out of the blue, I got an email from him and said, "Want to do a project? I want you to be in Bonfire." I'm like, yeah. He goes, "I got 10 shows right now. Can you come over?" Okay. Next thing you know, I got a plane ticket. I go over and we did 180 shows that year. And it was really the year of 2013, I guess, or something like that. 14, early 14. And I was literally going to say, "I'm putting my hat on the wall and I'm done with this shit." And I joined up Bonfire for 3 records. Where I met my wife. And I live in Italy now, and I've been here since end of 2014.
Oh wow. On the retirement train, have you got plans to
retire?
Yes.
The first one would be the first reason I would do it would be if the voice doesn't work, because there's so many singers out there right now that are faking it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to make a clown out of myself. Maybe if I had a serious health issue, but there's going to come a day when the fat lady sings, and I'm going to have to look back and go, I had a good time. I had a good life. I did a lot of things, but right now I'm gonna really pursue 2025. But there may be circumstances beyond my control, touring wise, the economy. I'm hoping with Trump back in office that when America gets really strong, a lot of people are going to hate me for this, but when our economy is really strong, the rest of the world thrives.
Yeah,
And well, it's true. And with Biden, it's been a total disaster for many of my musician friends. My working friends are barely able to put gas in their cars and feed their families. I think if economically people have that extra 50 euros to go see a show on a weekend, that will help a lot. Because ticket prices, let's be honest, they're ridiculous.
yeah.
I mean, and then what the band ends up getting after all the tariffs that are put on from the promoters and the agencies, and there's nothing left. So basically, you're out there playing live. You get a fee, but that fee's paying for the gas and the band, and you're praying that you sell merchandise to put a little money in your pocket. Because I mean, a normal working family, you got a few kids at home, and let's say you're in your 40s, you got to work Monday and you're playing a Sunday night. Honey, can we spend 500 euros to go see this band? Nope. So if there's a little bit disposable income created in the next year, I think I'll hang on. But I'm gonna let the tide tell me, because I'm not gonna bullshit you. I mean, you get bad news every day in this business. Every day. It's just you gotta put on thick skin and keep pushing and think about the song. It's not about I think my spirit will tell me when it's time to hang it up. Because I don't want to be one of those overweight fat guys that thinks he still looks cool in tight pants and can't sing half the range and living off my repertoire to book 10 shows a year. It's a lot of work.
Basically Vince Neil.
Well, I'm not going to criticize Vince. I mean he let himself go. Yeah, but I know Vince, and I know alcohol is not good for anybody at that rate, but doing the cortisone injections and all.
He's still doing the stuff, and quite frankly, I'm very, very amazed that he can still do it. I'm also very impressed.
Yeah, I mean he's hung it up, the bad habits. He's better shape. He's doing way better than I am. What's what we say in the business is it's called the it factor. You either have it or you don't, and he has whatever that is, it, because even when he was at his worst, people were buying tickets. So that's a big deal too. If you have it, and I'm not saying I don't. I'm not going to criticize myself at that level, but he has it, and he came out of the time and created something. And Motley Crue, they're still going strong. They were going to hang it up, and then they came back and did the Def Leppard tour, and it did well. And Def Leppard, there's another band. They're all my age. I mean, still kicking ass, playing the hits. Wasp is still doing it. I mean, but it's getting thinner and thinner. The opportunities, because promoters want to sell tickets.
Well, that's all they know, really.
Yeah, I mean, they're not going to go, okay, let's give an unknown band a chance.
No.
And lose money. Of course, they want to, but the bottom line is the bottom line. And unless a band like Motley Crue says we want Reece to open, then that ain't going to happen. Or you can buy on a tour, but why would you spend 50,000 euros to go do 20 shows to pay the headliners' expenses and their road crew expense, and you living out of a van and no hotel rooms, which we've all done, so that headliner can carry on and keep his tour floating. But there are a lot of bands that are willing to do that. They got a rich dad or a rich uncle I want you to make it here. Here's your 10,000 per month, expense to go open for so and so. I know of a band that opened for AC/DC and they spent 250,000 euros. I won't mention their name. 30 minutes a night. You don't open for a band like AC/DC. They had diehard fans. That's why they don't use opening bands anymore.
Wow.
It was a career death. And they spent a ton of money and nobody remembers their name. I know why they did it, but they were throwing beer bottles at them and tennis shoes on stage. I mean, and it was a disaster. So you got to pick your enemies wisely. What looks like, if you got, let's say you got a merch booth, right? And you're with a middle range headliner, we'll call it a B plus. And they got a whole wall with the lights on it, 50 different styles of shirts,
yep.
CDs, albums, blah, blah, blah. And here you are, the guy paying opening support money, and you're allowed that corner in the dark by the merch company that's running for that. You know what I mean? And they see your measly little 2 options and your 5 CDs, and
yep.
And you might make 200 if you're lucky on a good day, compared to their 5 to 10 to 20,000 a night merch. You're not, it's tough, man. It's what you're willing to do. But I can tell you, a lot of these young bands, they're not helping themselves, and they're not helping the bands that are out touring. I'll give any band that's hungry, that's got some talent, sure, you want to come open for me? There ain't no money, but I'm damn sure willing to let you play in front of my crowd. You can use my backline. I'm one of those old school guys. I'm not going to charge you 500 euros to open for me. Why? Come on, come rock me. Show me what you got. And maybe 10 people will say, hey, that was a great band. Next time they play, I'm going to go see them. I'll say, yeah, I helped them do that. That's how I am.
One more thing before the final thought of the day. Life after music, obviously, at some point we're all going to get to that point. What would be next for David?
Finish this record. Make the decision upcoming few days if we're going to self-release, or will I sign with a few labels that have offered me a deal. Like I said, January, Rock Party of the Year. And then April, I'm waiting on confirmation on some festivals right now for Scandinavia. Today, actually, while we speak, spoke to them last night. Looks pretty good. And then as many shows as I can book. And I'm a road dog. I mean, I'm lucky that way vocally. I can, like, when I was in France, I had the flu. I mean, I could not breathe. I was eating cortisone, but I've done it so long, I know you're not going to be 100% today. Don't let your brain get in the way. Put on a good gig. And we did great gigs. I could have told the band, oh, I can't do it tonight. Oh, really? What are we going to do? We're going to lose our ass. That's my job. Some virus got a hold of me, and I went out and rocked, and we won France. And the French won me. So, yeah, that's my plan. There's no guarantees, my friend. There's one on the wall, right? There's one on the wall behind me from Accept, Eat the Heat, the gold record. I don't know if you can see it, but I'm pretty proud of that.
The motorcycle.
There it is. See it? The gold record? That's Eat the Heat. That was given to me by a fan. I wasn't even aware that it had gone gold. And when I was presented that, I was like, oh my God, I did it. I cherish that thing. Ain't no guarantees.
No guarantees, no. But David, thank you so much for your time, and
thank you.
Apologies.
Keep playing.